Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be here in front of the Calgary Stampede just hours before we launch the 2022 edition of the greatest outdoor show on earth. And what a great stampede it's going to be. It's a time to celebrate our Western heritage and our rural roots, but also for Calgarians and visitors to celebrate all the great things that are happening in the city and province. I'm going to have a few words to say specifically about the exciting things happening in Alberta agriculture in a moment. But before I get to that, I wanted to just highlight some very positive news. As you know, our government was elected on a commitment in the last election to challenge, to fight as hard as we can, Justin Trudeau's No More Pipelines Law, Bill C-69. Back in 2019, we succeeded in getting Canada's Senate to completely rewrite the bill, accepting all of Alberta's amendments. And we got 8 provinces on side, us plus 7 other provinces, to challenge the No More Pipelines law in Parliament. Unfortunately, the Trudeau government refused to listen, and they passed that law. We then kept our campaign commitment to launch a constitutional challenge. We did it in 2020 at the Alberta Appeal Court. And on May the 10th of this year, we got the decision back, an historic 4-1 majority decision that struck down Justin Trudeau's No More Pipelines Law, the Federal Impact Assessment Act, with a very historic decision, an affirmation of provincial jurisdiction, provincial rights under the Constitution, because this law poses a real threat to the future of the Canadian Federation. It turns the Federation on its head, and it also imperils our economy, creating even more investor uncertainty by asserting a unlimited federal ability to step in and micromanage pretty much every major project in any sector of the economy, in any province of Canada, at any time, for any reason. It cannot stand, and as the Alberta Appeal Court majority said, quotes, if upheld, the legislation would permanently alter the division of powers and forever place provincial governments in an economic chokehold controlled by the federal government. The judges went on to say that the act constitutes a profound invasion into provincial jurisdiction and provincial proprietary rights. Parliament's claimed power to regulate all environmental and other effects of interprovincial designated projects, intrudes into industrial activity, resource development, local works, and undertakings and other matters within provincial jurisdiction. And so they struck it down. Now, I've been working with my colleagues, the other 9 Canadian provincial premiers, since May the 10th, to encourage them to step into this as the federal government is appealing the Alberta Appeal Court decision to the Supreme Court of Canada. Last night was the deadline for provinces and other parties to submit applications to the Supreme Court of Canada to be interveners in this historic and critically important case before the Supreme Court of Canada. And I'm pleased to report that all 9 other provinces have, as of last night, as of the deadline, have confirmed their application to be interveners at the Supreme Court of Canada. That underscores the critical importance of this to the future of the Federation. So I'd like to thank all premiers and provincial governments for adding their voice to this critical debate, especially Saskatchewan and Ontario, who have been us since the beginning at the Alberta Appeal Court. So a very important development there that I think will underscore for the Supreme Court the importance of respecting the Canadian Constitution. With that, I'd like to highlight great news here today. As I said, Stampede is all about celebrating our Western heritage and our rural roots. We should never forget, for all the fun, the midway, and the breakfasts across town, that the Calgary Stampede is a agricultural exhibition. That is why it was founded. And it is a coming together of agri-food producers, livestock producers, from not just across Alberta, but all around the world. A lot of important business is done here in the ag sector, and Minister Horner will be talking about some of that. So it's a great chance to celebrate a huge step forward in Alberta agriculture. Last year, it turns out, was a record year. Despite bad weather, we booked $14.1 billion in agriculture and food exports, a record high, while food manufacturing set a record biggest number ever of $20 billion. Now, when we hit COVID and the global recession, this government knew we had to take dramatic action to get our economy back on track and to support and grow our traditional industries like ag, but also to diversify. And in the ag space, that means more investment in manufacturing, food processing, and value added. So back then we set in our strategy a very ambitious goal in Alberta's agri-food sector and investment growth strategy. We said that we wanted to hit $1.4 billion of additional investment in agri-food processing here in Alberta. And I am now pleased to report that Alberta has not just met that goal, but we have crushed it. Since setting that goal, we have seen $1.5 billion of new investment in agri-food and food processing in Alberta. An incredible sign of strength of Alberta's economic recovery, and this is great news. From potato processing to hemp manufacturing, we're seeing products grown here in Alberta being exported around the world. And it's just the start. With our job creation tax cut, our red tape reduction strategy, targeted supports in the ag sector, with critical capital infrastructure investments like twinning Highway 3 in the ag corridor between Medicine Hat and Lethbridge, the single largest investment in the history of Alberta irrigation. We've put together about a $900 million package that is increasing the number of arable acres in the province by over 125,000 acres, and Minister Horder's working on expanding that huge increase in irrigation in Alberta. This meeting the $1.5 billion goal of new investment in the sector means about 3,000 new full-time, good-paying jobs. And I can tell you that much more is on the way. So an important bit of progress in Alberta's economic recovery. I think this Stampede, we're going to be celebrating a lot about Alberta being back. And we can say now confidently that Alberta Ag has never been stronger. With that, I'd like to invite Alberta's Minister for Agriculture, Forestry, and Rural Economic Development, who himself is a multi-generational rancher from East Central Alberta, the Honourable Nate Horner.
Thank you, Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. I'm very excited to be here in Calgary as we get ready to kick off Stampede Week. From the rodeo to the live music and food, the greatest outdoor show on earth is a time to celebrate Alberta's rich agricultural history. Passed down from generation to generation, the economic footprint of a farmer or rancher runs wide and deep in our province. You may not know this, but every dollar created in agriculture and food processing can generate more than $2 of economic output. That's why, as part of Alberta's recovery plan, our agri-food sector investment and growth strategy set aggressive targets to build on existing strengths and maximize growth opportunities. The strategy established targets to attract $1.4 billion in new investment and create 2,000 new jobs by March of 2023. And as the Premier said, that's why we're here today. We're excited to announce that we've met and exceeded those targets earlier than anticipated. As of today, we have facilitated almost $1.5 billion in new investment across 197 projects that will create around 3,000 jobs for Albertans. In the past 3 months alone, we've announced more than $592 million in ministry-supported investments. This includes projects such as Inca Renewtech's $72 million hemp product manufacturing facility in Vegreville, Super Puff's new $50 million potato chip processing facility in Airdrie, and Phyto Organics' $225 million yellow pea wet fractionation facility in Strathmore. These companies and many others are part of a new chapter in Alberta's rich agricultural story. This milestone is a testament to the potential of agri-processing in Alberta and a stepping stone to further investment that will employ even more Albertans in the future. Alberta has the fundamentals to support a robust agri-food industry with a global impact, and we will continue to create business environment that attracts international investment to ensure Alberta's agri-food sector reaches its full potential. That's why we've been working to double our agriculture-specific staff at Alberta's international offices in Mexico, the U.S., Singapore, and the EU. These new team members complement the staff already working out of our offices in Beijing, Seoul, Tokyo, and New Delhi, delivering on our mandate to build an even more competitive agriculture industry. Despite a difficult growing season in 2021, the past few years of record-setting highs in food manufacturing tell a very impressive story. Data from StatsCan shows that in 2021, Alberta's agricultural and food exports did set a new record of $14.1 billion, while food manufacturing also continued an upward trend, with sales reaching a record $20.1 billion. And we have more incredible opportunities in front of us. Currently, we're actively working on over 100 projects, with a potential of facilitating an additional $5 billion in investment. For more than a century, agriculture has been building our province. We are famous for our beef, our golden fields of wheat, our barley and canola, and an entrepreneurial spirit that has been part of our success from the beginning. The food we produce here has a global reputation for safety and for the very best quality. In a world where almost 1 billion people go to bed hungry every day, we're going to continue to work to meet that demand. Alberta's farmers and ranchers are feeding not just Alberta families, but a hungry planet. And if there's one message I want to leave with you today, it's that Alberta is the best jurisdiction in the world for investment, growth, and expansion. And what better way to let the world know than just before the greatest outdoor show on earth. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Minister Horner. That concludes the formal portion of today's announcement. We'll now move over to a moderated media Q&A. We do have a Unimic out on the ground here for any journalists in person asking a question. We will ask you to limit yourself to one question and one follow-up. With that, I'll open up to the floor. Seeing no interest here, we're going to turn it over to the phones. Operator, can you please put through our first caller?
Thank you. The first caller is Saif Kaiser, City News.
Good afternoon. My question for the Premier here regarding Stampede. You know, it's finally here, uninhibited by any restrictions on gatherings. Wondering if you feel like this is what Alberta needs right now to help boost economy and tourism.
100%. Stampedes, I think a couple things are going to happen here. First of all, people are going to have an awesome time. You know, this COVID was 2 tough years. It was divisive. There was a lot of things lost. And people can come back together as community, heal those wounds, get past those divisions, reunite as a community. So I think it's a big morale booster. A lot of things to celebrate. Leading Canada in economic growth and job creation, new investment, diversification. And we have some more news on that front next week. But also, big boost for the tourism sector, which was the hardest hit by COVID. And just this morning at the First Flip breakfast in downtown, I met tourists from all around the world. Of course, from the U.S., from Britain, elsewhere in Europe, Asia, who are coming back to this, the biggest tourist event in the province. So I think this is good news for the hospitality sector. Those folks are going to be going up to Drum to see the Drumheller, to see the Dinosaur Museum. They're going to be going to the Rocky Mountain Parks. They'll be going all around the province, spending a lot of money. And so I think it's good news for retailers, restaurants, hotels, those folks who've been really hit hard through COVID. So really, and I understand the Stampede has really high ticket sales for the rodeo events, showing that between the tourists and the locals, this is going to be a successful Stampede.
Thanks, Premier. Saif, did you have a follow-up today?
Yeah, so wondering if there are maybe any concerns from government about maybe a spike in COVID numbers again after this event, and also if you feel like we might not see as many people coming just because of ongoing travel issues we're seeing mostly out of Ontario.
Yeah, we're not quite fully back on the travel side for sure. As you've seen, our airlines have had to cancel some of their flight schedule to deal with the big logistics problems. But I think we're going to, it's getting back to normal. That's the good news. On COVID, look, last summer we had no restrictions and there was no post-Stampede spike in cases. There were, I think at most, a few dozen cases of transmission traced back to the Stampede activities. Stampede happens in the first part of July. We didn't start to see a significant COVID case spike in the Delta wave until mid-August. So the two were not connected. The virus continues to circulate, but between high levels of natural immunity from prior infection plus 90% of eligible people having gotten a vaccine dose, we are like the rest of the world, moving on with life. And I don't want people in the summer of 2022, when we only have about 20 people in ICUs with COVID, I don't think people should be sheltering at home, living in fear. I think if there are people who are immunocompromised, they're always going to have to take some precautions about this or other infectious diseases. But I think we're like every other major event in the world. We're getting back to normal here, and there's no reason to believe that can't be done safely and for good.
Thank you, Premier Kenney. Just a reminder to any journalists on the phones that you can press *1 to enter the queue. Operator, can you please put through our next caller?
There are no additional callers at this time.
Wow, briefest news conference I've ever had.
All right, thanks, folks. That wraps things up today.
All right.